And happy Tuesday. It's the early game. Patrick Perrette and producer Ed Bird with you. No Bill today, no Jen this week. We'll carry you through. We've got plenty of football to talk about today. The AP Top 25, the Top 25 ranking of record came out yesterday. And we will dive into that. If you've seen it, if you have any thoughts, please get them into us. 803-404-6100. The coaches poll came out last week, and we talked about that. This one, not totally different. There's one glaring difference in that there was a first-place team, or a team that got a first-place vote, I should say, in the coaches poll that did not make an appearance at all in the AP poll. The University of Texas does not find themselves in the top 25. But as far as the actual teams in the top 25, it's fairly close to identical. I mean, I just counted it up, the top 17 are the same in each poll, which I do find fascinating. We're clearly not certain who the top 17 teams will be. And that's going to be part of the discussion today. Who is going to find themselves in the top 10? Who's going to find themselves unranked? Which of these top 10 teams will find themselves unranked by the end of the season? Because it will happen. It always happens, and usually it's multiple times. It happened last year. UNC, Texas A&M, and Iowa State were all preseason top 10 teams. All of them finished unranked. So who's that going to be this year? We got Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame, Michigan, A&M, Utah, Oklahoma, and Baylor. I think you start from the bottom and you say the obvious choice is Baylor, just because we generally don't know. They were Big Ten champs last year, or Big 12 champs last year. Close to a playoff berth. Dave Aranda, one of the better coaches in college football right now, definitely one of the up-and-coming names. But is it possible that it could be them? 803-404-6100 if you've got thoughts on that. Richard, starting us off on the text line. You can also find us at the Love Chevrolet phone line, same number, 803-404-6100. We've also got the live stream up and running right now. You can come join DC, RL, Justin, Robin, all up already this morning. Go to YouTube, you go to Facebook, you go to Twitter. You just type in 1075 The Game, and you can come and find us there. Richard's getting us started. He said, morning. I see the PGA Tour has itself in a bind. They foolishly penalized Cameron Smith Sunday before tee-off, and now he's stepped out next tournament, and they're bringing Tiger in to try and talk golfers out of leaving for LIV. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get news today, but I did see a tweet that there was going to be a players-only meeting today, and Tiger was flying in specifically to come and yell at people, basically. This was Alan Shipnuck, who golf writer for SI, author of the Phil book, kind of a controversial figure, I believe, in the golf world. I don't think he's necessarily popular, but he did put out the tweet last night. I'm hearing tomorrow's PGA Tour player meeting regarding LIV is going to be a banger. Supposedly everything's on the table, from major championship boycotts to Monahan's future to a larger compromise. And Tiger Woods is expected to fly in to provide counsel/bully. I will be fascinated to hear that meeting. There's already been one of these players-only meetings after sort of the first wave. They came and met, and I think nothing really came out of it. I mean, they agreed that they were going to hold firm and ban people that were on the LIV Tour. But what is, I don't know what they can do now. You know, everything is on the table, he says. For major championship boycotts? Who's boycotting major championships? Why would they do that? And what would that prove? I don't get it. To Monahan's future, it would be fascinating if they started blaming Jay Monahan for this. Fire him. To a larger compromise. That's what it should be. I don't know why we're still dealing with this. This could all be handled right now if the PGA just agrees to work with the Live Tour, let players play some tournaments on it, let them all make their money, and then keep the PGA Tour alive. It's what should have been. It would have never gotten to this point if they had just done that from the beginning. 803-404-6100. We have talked a lot of golf this summer because of that, the Live Tour drama. One of the storylines of the whole summer, too, was Will Zalatoris. Runner-up, couldn't get a win, finally did this Sunday. One of the luckiest shots I've ever seen in his playoff, where it literally lands on the edge of the water in between a brick, and he's allowed to deem it unplayable and ends up winning. So good for Will Zalatoris. Just fired his caddy last week, too. We did talk about that. Fires his caddy and immediately wins the tournament. That hurts. So I think his caddy was one of his lifelong friends, but good for him. Won't talk too much about that, but if you do have thoughts on this players-only meeting and the Live Tour, we will definitely get to that. Again, 803-404-6100. Casey from Gilbert says, I want to know not only what expected top 10 team won't be ranked, but what does Carolina have to do to reach the top 10 given our schedule? Ugh. It is interesting if we start breaking that down early because there will be obviously top 10 teams that drop. Notre Dame is going to play Ohio State week 1, and we will talk Notre Dame today because Notre Dame did announce their starting quarterback, which we haven't really discussed, but they announced their quarterback. They've had a battle after Jack Cohn left last year, and they also had a big injury, which is going to really hurt them. So the youngster Tyler Buckner, who is a bit of a dual threat, he's not like crazy fast or anything, but he's physical and he's a good runner, was announced as starting quarterback at Notre Dame. And wonder if anyone has any thoughts on that. I think they just needed a dual threat. He was the most highly touted and was good at times last year, but not special. And I think that was what I assumed was going to happen. I think most people assumed was going to happen. But they also, their star wide receiver, their captain, their deep threat, their everything, Avery Davis. Avery Davis, the one that caught that ball in the last minute against Clemson to help them win that game. ACL injury for him. I think it's his senior year. So out for the year, which is really unfortunate. We talked yesterday about Isaiah Nayor and Junior Angelau from Texas. Their Junior Angelau, I think, started 38 games in his college career. Isaiah Nayor is supposed to be one of the best duos. Him and Xavier Worthy were supposed to be one of the best duos in college football this year. And unfortunate for him, there's so far been a pretty big handful of injuries. Clemson fans are familiar. Xavier Thomas is going to be out for the 4 to 6 weeks, so he'll miss the first few games, but should be back, and that will hurt for sure because that defensive line is maybe going to be the best in the country. Xavier Thomas across from Miles Murphy, right next to Brian Breesy, and they're just loaded. So unfortunate for him. Never want to see that, but I do think Clemson's going to be okay the first couple weeks. As far as those top 10 teams, Richard said, I think it'll be Michigan, Utah, and maybe the Irish, maybe his Irish that don't finish in the top 25 this year. Said they got crushed at receiver. Sad to say, but too many unknowns at Notre Dame this year. Yeah. There are some unknowns. There are some knowns. I mean, Notre Dame still does have some monsters. I mean, Michael Mayer is about as dominant of a college tight end as you're going to see. Their offensive line is going to be good. They're going to be able to run the football, but there are some unknowns for sure. So what top 10 teams are going to find themselves unranked? And at the same time, which unranked teams are going to find themselves in the top 10? As far as the AP, the highest unranked team that did find themselves ranked in the coaches poll was Texas. Texas was 18 in the coaches poll with a first place vote. Their win total is pretty high. I have it written down here. They're expected, in terms of Vegas, to win 9 games. Over under of 9. So if they went over and they hit 10, shoot, they'd be pretty high up there. But who's going to find themselves in there? Is it Tennessee? That's what most people think. Tennessee unranked in both polls, but just on the outside looking in both of them. In others receiving votes, Tennessee had 180 votes. And number 25, Baylor, had 234 votes. So they were about 50 votes off of being ranked. South Carolina way down there, only 2 votes in the AP poll, only 5 votes in the coaches poll. So what does South Carolina need to do? Waddy answers it. They've got to win. They've got to beat Arkansas. Obviously, they got to beat Georgia State. They got to beat Arkansas. But in top 10, short of beating Georgia, I don't know what's going to be able to happen. Because that's the problem. You got if South Carolina goes 3-0, they'll find themselves in the top 10. I'm sure. That would be something. Because that would require beating a top 3 team, beating a top 20 team on the road. Because we talked about the coaches poll, Arkansas was in there in the coaches poll. Arkansas 23 in the coaches poll, behind Cincinnati, who they play in week 1 at 22. In the AP poll, Arkansas finds themselves at 19, playing number 23 ranked Cincinnati. 803-404-6100. Just look, Arkansas beats Cincinnati. They'll probably find themselves in the top 15-ish range. If South Carolina goes to Fayetteville week 2 and beats the top 15 team, and then they come back home and they beat number 3 ranked Georgia, yeah, maybe they'll find themselves in the top 10. They can bounce pretty fast. The AP is usually slow to move teams. So if Notre Dame at number 5 loses to Ohio State, I'm not sure how far they'll drop. Rankings are so weird that way, and we'll talk about that. If you're 0-1, you shouldn't be a top 25 team. But we always do it that way. And the top 25 is weird. Do we truly believe these are the 25 best teams? I saw Peter Burns from SEC Network was a little riled up about this yesterday because he was saying, how is Tennessee not in there? Do you truly believe that Wake Forest is a better team than Tennessee? They can't play defense. They don't have their quarterback right now. Do we truly believe they're better? Or do we think their record's going to be better? Same thing at the end of the year. There's going to be a group of 5 teams that have 1 loss that are going to be in the top 25. That'll be like 7-1, and they'll be in the top 25. Whereas there's going to be a 2-loss SEC team that would be favored by 10 points on a neutral site against that group of 5 team, but be unranked. So rankings, it's something we get riled up about, but it ultimately does not matter. But still, it's good talking. It's good fodder for talking. 803-404-6100. We got to hit a break, but hang with us. Give us a call on the Love Show phone line. Shoot us a text on the Cool Care Heating and Air text lines. And we'll be right back. You're listening to The Early Game, 107.5 The Game.
booster is given to enhance or restore protection after a primary series vaccination, which wanes over time. Schedule an appointment when you are eligible. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech. Sponsored by Dell Technologies. Dell Technologies provides growing businesses with tools to do incredible things. We believe there's an innovator in all of us. We're not so smart people is powered by Intel Control. Call Dell Technologies Advisor at 877 Ask Dell.
As a business owner, it's important your customers have the best experience possible. That includes a convenient place to park. Schroeder's Towing can help keep your lot and designated spaces available. The last thing you want is your customers to go somewhere else simply because they have no place to park. Schroeder's offers free signage to deter unwanted parking and removal of abandoned vehicles. They have your back 24/7. Schroeder's Towing, 1,100 five-star Google reviews can't be wrong. 772-7930. 772-7930. Schroeder's Towing, best hookers in town.
Locally owned Atlantic Windows and Doors, but making Columbia area homes more comfortable, attractive, weathertight, and energy efficient for over 35 years. Now, by distributing products from the best window and door manufacturers in the country. These products give you the best look, the best quality, and the best value, all based on your specific needs. And everything is professionally installed by their dedicated and experienced employees, not subcontractors. Atlantic Windows and Doors. Visit them online at awpsc.com. Broadcasting live from the Heritage Chevrolet Studios. This is 175. Stop by.
.621 here on a Tuesday morning. Patrick Pratt and Ed Bird with you. 803-404-6100. And a lot of text to get to right now. There are a couple stories that I want to talk about. Brad just sends me a screenshot of Lane Kiffin yesterday. If you haven't seen that, type in Lane Kiffin frat house. Apparently they found their punter. Ole Miss found their punter at the frat house. They just needed depth. And he said, hey, see if you guys know anybody that can punt. And they ended up finding this kid. His name is Charlie Pollock. And he used to punt at Nevada. Ended up transferring and now is going to be a punter. I don't know if he's going to be the punter or just a backup punter at Ole Miss. Found his tweet. He entered his name from the transfer portal about a couple months ago. Transferred from Nevada, ended up just going to be a student to finish out his college career at Ole Miss, and now he's on the football team. So good for Charlie Pollock. Todd says when Carolina faces Georgia, the Bulldogs will already have one loss to Oregon. Do South Carolina fans want that? I assume so. But are there South Carolina fans that want Oregon to win because of the SEC bias and because of maybe we want to be the ones to knock Georgia off? Text in if you want Georgia to win that game and tell me what your reason is. I'm interested in that. I assume most people want Oregon to win because they don't like Georgia. But at a certain point, when it is the preseason games and bowl games, and it's us directly versus another conference, do you want the SEC to win? Always curious about that. Charles, Texan says, 2 college football stories. Are Miles Brennan quitting, which we will certainly talk about, and still getting his NIL money? I hope that makes sponsors more hesitant on giving kids money. I don't think it will, because Miles Brennan is still a name. People know who Miles Brennan is. And he's still – I mean, Miles Brennan is also kind of loved at LSU. He was loyal to LSU for a long time, was supposed to come in and be the starter before Joe Burrow got there. And unlike most kids who would have transferred at that time, he stuck with LSU, and Joe Burrow was obviously had a decent season and an incredible season. And as soon as he's supposed to get the starting job, he hurts himself, hurts his shoulder. LSU stinks. Ed Orgeron gets fired. He puts his name in the portal and then decides to come back and finish it off at LSU. Wasn't going to play this year, so he decided to, instead of transferring, like a lot of people would do as well, just finish his time at LSU and just quit football. So here's his post. He said, over the last 5 years, I've given all my body, heart, and soul to LSU football. Playing for LSU has been a dream come true, wearing the purple and gold, running into Death Valley, winning a national championship, and starting at quarterback for the LSU Tigers. What more could a kid ask for? I'll never forget the time I've spent and the memories I've made here. To the players who have suited up alongside me, to the coaches who recruited, signed, and developed me, to the training staff who has cared for me, to the support staff who has provided everything I needed to compete at the highest level and continue my education, and to the fans who cheered for me every step of the way, thank you. I want to say thank you to the student body, the administration, the entire LSU fan base for all of your tremendous support over the last 5 years. I will never forget my time in Baton Rouge. I love LSU and all of our fans. I'm forever grateful for every opportunity I've been given, every obstacle I've overcome, and every second I've been a Tiger. However, after 5 seasons, it's time for me to start a new chapter in my life. I'm announcing today that I'll be stepping away from football. I'm thankful where this journey has taken me so far, and I'm looking forward to where it takes me next. So, yeah, Miles Brennan, kind of sad what it's gotten to. I mean, he's just been so banged up year after year after year, and I don't blame him. It's not – I don't think this is an example of, hey, I didn't get the starting job, so I quit. I'm done. I think he battled, wanted to give it one last go. Garrett Nussmeier's banged up right now. Things aren't necessarily going the way he wants. I think he's just had enough. His body's been banged up year after year, and that's hard. That's hard to deal with. So Miles Brennan done at LSU. That starting battle maybe a little bit more clear. Certainly right now it's clear that Jaden Daniels is a starter, but Garrett Nussmeier still returning from an injury. And when he returns, it might be more of a battle. But if we're betting, it would be smart money to bet on Jaden Daniels being the LSU starting quarterback this season. And coming up, we are going to talk about some of these quarterback battles, the other ones. It does feel like we're getting some clarity on a couple of these quarterback battles across the SEC. And Charles also mentioned the USF quarterback situation where the kid that played last year was beaten out by a transfer and his father went onto social media to defend him. He's now entered the portal. So I'm going to kind of use this story to segue into the quarterback battle discussion because, yeah, you're talking about Timmy McClain was the starter for USF last year. I didn't see his dad's tweet, but the USF starting quarterback this year now is Jerry Bohannon, who, if you remember back in, I think, 2019, made his debut in the Big 12 championship after Charlie Brewer went down for Baylor. This past spring, Jerry Bohannon was battling for the Baylor QB job. Dave Aranda willingly announced in the spring that Jerry Bohannon would not win the quarterback job. And I think this is something that coaches aren't going to do as much anymore because of exactly what happened. So Jerry Bohannon was battling Blake Sharpen was his name, and Dave Aranda announced that Blake Sharpen was the starting quarterback heading into summer. Jerry Bohannon promptly put his name in the transfer portal, got to USF, and won the job over the summer. And now, as soon as he wins the starting job, Timmy McClain, last year's starter, is in the portal immediately after. So where does this all end? Does this end with, Timmy McClain not going to find a starting job now? What if Jerry Bohannon gets hurt in the first couple weeks of the season, and then it would have been Timmy McClain's job for the year, and now Timmy McClain doesn't have a home, and he's just a backup somewhere else in an offense he doesn't know? It just seems irrational. I get it. There's only one quarterback. But how many times do quarterbacks get hurt? We see multiple quarterbacks in a season so often. It seems like the most insanely irrational move to do that an hour after, 2 hours after you lose the starting job. But it happened. And our coach is going to be – are they going to be scared to announce starting quarterbacks in the spring? How many coaches in the SEC right now know who their starting quarterback is, or we're pretty sure who their starting quarterback would have been after the spring game or before summer at least? I think there's 4 main QB battles. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. 4 main QB battles in the SEC. Ole Miss, LSU, Texas A&M, and Auburn. You got the returning Luke Altmaier battling Southern Cal transfer Jackson Dart. Jaden Daniels, Arizona State transfer, battling returner Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. Texas A&M has got the returner Haynes King battling transfer Mac Johnson. And then Auburn's got a battle between a pair of transfers in TJ Finley and Zach Calzada. A lot of updates so far, and we do feel like we kind of have an idea of who's going to win those starting jobs. We will talk about that when we come back. 803-404-6100. We'll also get to your thoughts on the text line and give us a call on the Love Chevrolet phone lines if you would like to be a part of the program. It's the early game, 107.5 The Game.
Who wants to settle for a single TV? With more TVs, bigger screens, plus our fabulous CDs, there's more opportunities.
.6:33 here on a Tuesday morning. Patrick Perrette and Ed Bird with you. Back out to the text lines. Jim in Carolina Beach says, I'm a Clemson graduate and pull against all SEC teams because it just means more when they lose. What do you think about the ACC having just one less team in the top 25 than the SEC? And what do you think about Clemson Tigers defending soccer national champions being number one in the preseason top 25? I don't think anything about it. I think the defending national champions are number one in a lot of sports. But I did see that the South Carolina Gamecocks are number 4 in the preseason poll after West Virginia, Marshall, and Kentucky. Marshall just 2 years removed from a national championship. So South Carolina pretty high up there in the Sun Belt. Could be a good year, too, for Tony Annan and the soccer team. Tied Duke in that first preseason scrimmage with a really young roster that's still taking shape. So pretty exciting times there on the pitch. And on the live stream, another thing that I'll just mention quickly. Travis said, I know we can't talk NBA on the radio without people having a meltdown, but what happens with Durant? I think he's going to still end up playing for the Nets. I just don't know how this gets resolved. It is so interesting, though, because the story yesterday, for people that do not follow the NBA, Kevin Durant requested a trade a few weeks ago now from the Nets. They shopped him around a little bit. We're not going to get the return they wanted. And they said, we're not going to trade you. And then Durant, allegedly, his response was, okay, well, then I want you to fire the general manager and head coach, Steve Nash, who Durant had a major hand in having hired. It was basically handpicked by him and Kyrie. So now it's the coach and the general manager or me. And the Nets are basically saying, we're not negotiating this with you. You're going to play. And yesterday, the story turned into Kevin Durant's going to retire rather than play another game for the Brooklyn Nets, which seems crazy because Kevin Durant is a basketball fanatic, like loves basketball. I just didn't think that was possible. So he went on Twitter yesterday and said, I know people will believe unnamed sources over me, but if it's anyone out there that'll listen, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. It's comical at this point. And it kind of is. NBA offseason rumors are like nothing else. But do we think Kevin Durant's actually going to retire? No, I don't think so. It's just the Nets they're so afraid of – they're seeing every other team that trades their superstars basically lose because you need superstars. You can trade 5 young up-and-coming pieces, but almost every time you trade a superstar, you lose. I don't know in which sport that's not the case. You see a team like the Raiders a couple years ago, I think, is the most recent one that comes to mind for me, trading Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper for a couple first-round picks. The only first-round pick they got back from that's left on the team is Josh Jacobs, and he's now just one of many in a stable because he played in the first preseason game. He played in the Hall of Fame game, which means he's not a starter. We've seen some massive trades this year. Will the Texans be able to rebuild their core from the Deshaun Watson trade? Maybe, but I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't guarantee it. Deshaun Watson's a weird situation because he's probably going to get suspended all year this year, but the Broncos traded for Russell Wilson. Is it really possible the Seahawks are going to get the better end of that deal? I don't know. Normally when you have a superstar quarterback, you're going to win the trade. When you have one of the best players in basketball, no matter what, you're going to win that trade. So the Nets don't want to be the next team to just say, well, this is what the player wants. He's going to force his way out. We don't want someone with a bad attitude here, so let's just trade him. They can be a contender with KD. They can't with Marcus Smart and a couple depth pieces and first-round picks from the Celtics. That's why I was bummed about the Nats trading Juan Soto. You can get 5 prospects. All 5 of them can be the next great thing. But when you already have a top 3, 5 player in baseball, at worst 5, and he's 23 years old, you don't trade that. So I respect the Nets for holding strong. They're not going to be bullied, and you know what? You can just play. You're going to just have to play. 803-404-6100. I asked about South Carolina fans wanting Georgia to win or wanting Oregon to win, and this is kind of what I suspected. Two anonymous texters texting in almost the same time. We want Georgia to win because then when we beat Georgia, we would move up higher. The second says we want UGA to win because if we win or lose, it looks better. It looks better on us, the better the opponent is. I understand that take for sure. Georgia, I mean, I don't know how far they'll tumble. I always have kind of a beef with the way the polls adjust. DJ says, so if the loser of a close game between Notre Dame and Ohio State shouldn't be in the top 25? Come on, man. No, not a close game. I don't think it'll be a close game. It's just there's always something weird about it. Just because we think that this team's going to be – we think Team X is going to be good in the preseason, they have these players that we know. Just because we think that they're going to be good, if they lose a game, we'll still let them be ranked really high because we thought they were going to be good. So even though they got their butts kicked, we still thought they were going to be good, so they deserve to be high. I don't know. And it always seems to be inconsistent between do we really believe they're the 25 best teams or do we believe that they're the 25 teams with the best resumes? And it seems like the voters, and because it's done by voters and the coaches poll is done by coaches who also want to give their own team credit or their rivals credit because it will help them, it's always inconsistent the way people look at it. Anytime you have a bunch of people voting on something like this, it can get muddled. Just like we did when we did the top 30 Gamecocks list. We had a combination of people saying, well, these are my 30 favorite Gamecocks. Well, these are the 30 who had the best South Carolina careers. Well, these are the 30 who had the best combined South Carolina and NFL careers. Well, these are the 30 with the best legacy. These are the 30 that won the most games. There's all sorts of ways that people did it, and that created good conversation, which is kind of what the poll is meant for. The only poll that matters now is the college football playoff poll. But we still talk about the AP poll because it's interesting, because fans care, because Mark Stoops has built Kentucky into a really good program who we've talked a lot about the last couple of weeks, and now Kentucky's ranked in the preseason poll, which they have not done since 1978. That's meaningful to a program. And it's meaningful for Cincinnati to be ranked in the preseason again. It's meaningful for South Carolina fans to look at the schedule and say, hey, well, we're probably playing the number 19th best team in the country in week 2. And then we're going to go and play at least the third best team in the country in week 3. But it's mostly just conversation pieces. But do we really believe that there are 25 better teams than LSU? LSU's unranked. I find it very hard to believe that with the talent LSU has, the defensive line they have by itself, the running game they're going to have always because they have strong offensive line and defensive line play. I find it hard to believe. They're maybe the best wide receiving core in the SEC. I just refuse to believe that there are 25 teams in the nation that would beat LSU. Certainly not in Death Valley, but on a neutral site. And we'll find out. Florida State's not ranked either. LSU got 55 votes. Florida State, I don't even see on the list. I don't even think they got a vote. But if LSU whoops Florida State, I think LSU should deserve to be ranked. Tennessee's going to play Pittsburgh early. That'll get them an opportunity to get ranked. The others receiving votes, Texas, Iowa, Penn State, sort of round out that next big group. If it went to 30, we'd have Tennessee, Texas, Iowa, Penn State, and LSU round out the top 30. Which one of them is the biggest snub? And who doesn't deserve to be there? Does Houston beat Texas on a neutral site? I don't know. There is some drama there in the quarterback situation with Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card, which we'll talk about as well. 803-404-6100. We'll wrap up hour number 1 when we get it back. It's the early game, 175 the game. And wrapping up hour number 1 here on the early game, Patrick Perrette and Ed Bird with you. And Bill Gunner's back tomorrow. Jen's back next week. So we're carrying you through today and talking about the AP poll that came out yesterday and how it's kind of meaningless, but also sort of shapes the narrative of college football. So still worth discussing. The main difference between the AP poll and the coaches poll is no Texas. It's actually almost identical other than that. I actually believe there's only one team that's different, and I think it's that the AP poll has BYU in there, whereas the coaches poll has Texas. The only difference. And there's a lot of groupthink in college football. 24 of 25 are the same teams, and most of the ballots look pretty much the same too. And I don't know how we end up there. It probably didn't used to be like that, I'm assuming. But the way we talk about it, we have opinion shapers, Kirk Herbstreits of the world, people that say something, and then it's sort of taken as fact, and everyone bounces off and maybe has slight variations, saying, I like this team a little bit more than you do. I like that team a little bit more. I'm not so high on this one, but leaves us with basically the same top 25, at least in the preseason. But it never works out that way. So I asked early, who's the top 10 team that's going to be unranked? Who's the unranked team that's going to be in the top 10? Brett McMurphy mentions that it happens every single year, and last year it happened twice. Last year, there were 3 top 10 teams that finished the season unranked. They were North Carolina, who was top 10, went into Virginia Tech and got their butts kicked in that first game. Texas A&M, who beat Alabama but was disappointing besides that. And Iowa State. On the other side of things, unranked teams, 3 of them ended up in the top 10. Michigan and Michigan State and Baylor were all unranked and now top 10 teams. Does Baylor go from unranked to top 10, right back from top 10 to unranked? Because Baylor is number 10 in the poll. And it feels like they are the team most primed to drop out. Or for the rest of the top 10, what has to go wrong? What would have to go wrong for Alabama to drop out of the top 10? I don't think it's possible. Even if Bryce Young got hurt, I think they'd still be okay. And this is the 15th straight year that Alabama has found themselves at number 1 in the poll. The longest streak ever. And it's actually more than double the longest streak ever before Alabama and Nick Saban. From 86 to 92, the Miami Hurricanes were number 1 in the poll for 7 straight years. Not preseason, just at any given time. And Alabama for the last 15 years has at some point been number one in the poll. And most of those years, they've been number one preseason. They are actually pretty darn close to Ohio State in terms of points. 1,566 for Alabama, 1,506 for Ohio State. But of the 103 first-place votes, of the 63 first-place votes, Alabama got 54. So close to unanimous number one team in the nation, Alabama. There doesn't seem to be a world where they're not number one. Because if Bryce Young gets hurt, then they'll have a bunch of other 5 stars to go replace him. Same thing with Ohio State. Same thing with Georgia. Do we really think Georgia's season would fall apart and they wouldn't win the SEC if Stetson Bennett got hurt? No. Clemson is an interesting case. I mentioned they've got an injury to Xavier Thomas. That's going to hurt their defensive line, but their defensive line is still going to be dominant. Their defense is going to be dominant. Their offense is the question. What's going to happen there? An injury to DJU isn't going to knock Clemson's season hopes out of proportion. Do Clemson fans even want DJU to be the starter? I don't know. I see Cade Klubnik's name thrown around a lot. So quarterback's not going to affect things there. Notre Dame could be one of those teams. I mean, Richard's a Notre Dame fan, and he did mention they could be one of those teams that falls out. I definitely feel worse now they lost Avery Davis. But they will get whooped by Ohio State. I'm pretty sure of that. Could A&M find themselves unranked again? It is ridiculous that A&M goes from top 10 to unranked. They finished the season unranked, and now they're a top 10 team again. They're number 6 in the country, and no one knows who's going to play quarterback for them. It's just kind of how it goes. Utah and Michigan come in at 7 and 8. Michigan lost a lot. I'm low on Michigan this year. They've been recruiting well, but it just feels like last year was their season. And I don't know if Jim Harbaugh can keep doing that again. I don't know if he can do it 2 years in a row. Utah, I am high on. But Utah also is one of those teams that feels like they have a really good team, but there's just something that goes wrong. There's a game they lose that they shouldn't, and they never get to that level. They never get quite there. And there, meaning the college football playoff. Can they do it this year? I don't know. They're going to Florida week 1. And a lot of people in the Utah program worried about them experiencing the heat and the humidity and what it's going to feel like in the swamp on week 1. And they are preparing for it. I saw a story that Utah's practicing in the indoor facility. They crank the heat up. They put the noise all the way up. And they're doing all sorts of different things to make it as humid as possible to somewhat acclimate themselves to what they're going to experience in the swamp. I don't know what you can do. If anyone has any experience with that or has heard a story, I don't know what you can do to imitate humidity. But it is a smart idea to get in the indoor facility. And it's funny that to make it hotter, they're going to the indoor. When you think about the temperatures that we're getting in Columbia, South Carolina, having gone to Texas in May, just imagining being outside in the Texas heat in August. And Utah is going to go inside to practice so they can imitate the heat in Florida. But the noise machine is nothing new. That's a smart thing that most teams do. I'm seeing today it's going to get up to 93 in Salt Lake City, Utah. So it's not like it's cold there or anything. It's just, I guess if they crank the heat up to over 100 or something like that in the indoor, then that's a better indication. Okay, wrapping up hour number 1 here. A little bit of South Carolina news. Desmond Umeozulu, the pass rusher from the DMV area, has announced his commitment date, and that's going to be August 29th. He's narrowed it down to North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio State, and Pittsburgh. So, which would be another big get. Again, there were all those DMV kids that South Carolina was recruiting. The DMV to SC Photoshop went out after Tree Babalade committed to South Carolina. And Umeozulu is the next one that is really sought after. Obviously, Nicholas Harper is the biggest fish in the sea right now, but there's a lot of other things that go into his recruitment not necessarily just what school he wants to play football for. Again, he's a world-class track athlete. That's going to have an impact on where he goes. All the schools he's looking at to run track and play football. So it's not just Shane Beamer that needs to help recruit him. He needs to be sold on the track program as well. But Umeozulu, as we were talking about yesterday, the lines of scrimmage is where South Carolina needs to get better. They need to get stronger. The team speed has definitely increased with this class. But again, size is going to help win. When you're going against Georgia, when you're going against Tennessee, and these guys have 330-pound interior linemen, that is where South Carolina needs to improve, and they need to be strong at the point of attack on defense. So Umeozulu certainly would be and I hope I'm saying his name right. That's the closest I've gotten. But I hope that he would be a big help in that regard. Again, 803-404-6100. We'll get to our number 2 here, and we will get into those quarterback battles that I mentioned. I did mention Quinn Ewer's name because there is some interesting situations at Texas, and I want to talk about how the quarterback battles in the SEC can be influenced by what happened at Baylor. I mentioned Jerry Bohannon and Timmy McClain. That battle's over with, and one of them is transferring. Does that have an impact on how coaches decide, or at least decide to announce who their starting quarterbacks are going to be? Again, 803-404-6100. Hour number 2, you can join us on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. You can join us on the text lines, or you can come join the live stream. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Just type in 107.5 The Game. If you're finding us on YouTube, you can click and subscribe, and you can comment and be a part of the discussion. Again, it's Patrick Brett and Ed Bird, wrapping up hour number 1. Hang with us. Hour number 2 coming up. And kicking off hour number 2 of the early game, Patrick Perrette and producer Ed Bird with you today. Bill is out today. We'll be back tomorrow. Jen is out this week, back in Indianapolis. She was playing the Brickyard Golf Course yesterday, I believe. Found a Palmetto golf ball while she was playing. So she will be back next week. And we're just 1 weekend away from college football. So we're going to get you all the college football talk this morning. But also, NFL has begun. We need to touch a little bit on the NFL. Not all that much, but it is, as we've talked about, rankings and the AP polls coming out and the coaches polls coming out. It's also ranking season in the NFL. And I wonder if anyone ever gets into the NFL's top 100 players list. I used to get into it more. Now I just kind of look at it, but I used to be really interested in how many Washington players were going to make the top 100. And I do think it's a somewhat interesting concept. And again, we're just looking for stuff to argue about right now. We're 2 weeks away from football. Everything's going to be settled on the field in just a couple weeks. But we're all so football crazed at this time that we're just looking for anything to talk about. For the NFL, there's preseason games to overreact to watch your starting quarterback or your new rookie play 10 snaps. And you can say, wow, here's what he's going to do this year. I've done it a million times. But the NFL top 100 list is another thing because they're just experts. They just know how to keep people's attention throughout the offseason. And right now we are through 51. We're halfway through the top 100 list. And 100 is a weird number. It's hard to think like, oh, is so-and-so a top 100 player in the NFL? Well, there's 32 teams. So that means there's an average of 3 to 4 guys on every team that can be top 100 players. So does every team even have top 100 players? Some teams are really bad and they have no one. So it's number 100 is Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback for the 49ers. And yeah, he's fantastic. He's a great fullback, best fullback in the league. Does that make him a top 100 player? Probably. I guess I don't have beef with it. Number 99, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins puts up big numbers year in and year out. Is he a top 100 player? I don't know. Is he a top 100 important player? Yeah. But are there probably like 5 guards that are better at what they do that aren't going to make the list than Kirk Cousins is at playing quarterback? Also probably so. David Montgomery, number 98. He's a good running back for the Bears. Is he one of the best running backs in the league? I don't know. I don't think so. Leonard Williams, number 97. He's a good defensive end, but I don't know. There's a lot of names. Jimmy Ward, the defensive back for the Niners. CeeDee Lamb is one of the bigger names. Justin Tucker finally makes the list for the first time ever. One of the best kickers in NFL history finally makes the list. It's just an interesting concept. I don't know if college will ever adopt anything like that. If so, how many South Carolina's players would make the top 100? And college football is a little bit interesting because you sort of have to project a little bit more. The NFL, most of these guys have proven it, and that's what to make the list, you have to prove it. The only person, or at least the first person so far who was a rookie last year that made it was Kyle Pitts. I'm sure Jamar Chase will be on this list, but Kyle Pitts was at number 91 after a good rookie season. So how many South Carolina players would be there? Spencer Rattler would be. Would Zach Pickens be? Is there anyone else that could make that list? Cam Smith? Jaheim Bell? Austin Stogner? Maybe. I think that's kind of where it ends. Josh Vann would be a fringe, but there's a lot of good wide receivers in college football. Just an interesting thing that I was just reading through, and I like that they do it because I just like reading rankings. At this point, we're in list season, we're in ranking season, we're in poll season, we're in all that stuff. At 803-404-6100 is the number if you would like to call on the left side phone lines and weigh in. If you'd like to text on the text lines and get involved in the program, because again, it's talking season. That's all we can do. We can make predictions. There's nothing very tangible to talk about right now. The only tangible things to talk about, as we mentioned yesterday, with South Carolina going through camp, the only thing we want is no injuries. And that's already been a problem. And certain programs are able to sustain injuries and still push through and have the season they want to have. Some of them are not. And we're going to see. We're going to see a program like Texas that has a lot of buzz right now. They had a number one vote in the Coaches Poll. They have no number one votes, and they're not a top 25 team in the AP poll. They are a top 27 team because they are the second team. They have the second most votes outside the top 25. And I did ask who got snubbed the most. Tennessee, Texas, Iowa, Penn State, LSU are the top 5 that just missed it. There are some people really high in Fresno State. They got 32 votes. Jake Haener back. They have a good receiving core. Don't know much about them, but people are high on them. Minnesota, UCF, Purdue, Mississippi State are the next ones. There are a lot of people really high on Mississippi State. Auburn, 15 votes. That one surprises me. Kansas State, Florida, North Carolina. The Auburn one really surprises me. But I did say that we're going to talk QB battles. And I did just mention injuries. Let me get to that first because, again, Isaiah Nayor and Xavier Worthy were expected to be one of the better duos in college football this year. You start looking at the best wide receiver tandems in the country, they were in that conversation for sure. And now Isaiah Nayor has torn his ACL and he's going to be out for the year. Same with their offensive lineman, Junior Angelo. Longtime starter, 30-plus starts for him, and is now out for the year as well. What does that do to Texas? What does that do to their starting quarterback, whoever it may be? Because apparently Quinn Ewers has not won the job yet. Hudson Card, real talented kid, is also pushing to be the starting quarterback there. And one, how big of a disappointment would that be? And two, do we believe it? I mentioned in hour number 1, Baylor last spring announced Jerry Bohannon was not going to be the starting quarterback. It was going to be Blake Sharpen. And he didn't need to do that. He didn't need to announce in the spring because as soon as he did, Jerry Bohannon transferred to Southern Florida. Got there by the spring, ended up winning the starting job. And as soon as he won the starting job, which was announced yesterday, Timmy McClain, their starter from last year, put his name in the portal. It's starting this horrible cycle of just quarterback transferring because they don't win a job. And I wonder if it's going to make coaches handle their starting quarterback situations different. So is Quinn Ewers more talented than Hudson Card? Almost certainly. I mean, he's one of the greatest quarterback recruits of all time. He's one of 3 so far perfect quarterback recruits, according to 24/7 Sports, given a 1.00 rating. I find it hard to believe that he wouldn't be the starting quarterback there. I think the fans would be upset if he's not. Either way, both of them are probably going to play against Alabama because they're going to get destroyed. But is it possible that Steve Sarkisian is slow playing this because he doesn't want to see Hudson Card transfer? Because what if you do announce Quinn Ewers as the starter, he doesn't play all that well, and Hudson Card transfers? Now all of a sudden you're real thin because Casey Thompson was your starting quarterback last year. Now he's at Nebraska. So you're down to one quarterback if Hudson Card transfers, and what's going to happen if Quinn Ewers gets hurt? And I wonder how much that's factoring into some of these coaches' decisions. Brian Kelly told Miles Brennan he was not going to be the starting quarterback. Miles Brennan retired from football yesterday. And there's several other battles right now in college football, and it seems like some of them are starting to take shape, but no announcements have been made yet. And do we need, if you're a fan of one of these teams, do you need an announcement, or can the battle rage through the regular season? I don't think in this day and age you can go possession for possession or quarter for quarter. I think you need to announce starters per games or say halves. I just think it's complicated to do what sort of Nick Saban was doing for a while, what Dabo tried to do for a little bit with Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence there before ultimately 4 games in, he announced that Trevor Lawrence was going to be the starting quarterback, partly so that Kelly Bryant would be able to transfer, and he heads over to Missouri. I remember that show we were talking about how bad it was that Kelly Bryant was going to sit out the rest of the season to transfer. What a way we've come. I don't think anybody would care now. We've seen some crazy things going on. De'Aaron King just was a starting quarterback and decided to sit out a season so that he wouldn't waste his eligibility on a bad Houston team and he could get to Miami, play another year. Been some crazy transfer stories. But 2 weeks before the season, you got a guy like Timmy McClain is putting his name in the transfer portal, has been taken off the roster because he didn't win the starting job. And I wonder how that's going to change things. There's a couple battles in the SEC between returners and guys that are transferring in to come and try and take their spots. One of the more high-profile ones we talked about, LSU. Miles Brennan is now out, but Garrett Nussmeier is the only other returner. He's battling Arizona State quarterback Jaden Daniels. As of right now, it does appear that Jaden Daniels is going to win that job. He is the dual-threat option. Brian Kelly's always wanted or had a dual-threat quarterback, and Garrett Nussmeier is banged up. Maybe when he gets back, things will change. But it does appear that Jaden Daniels is going to win that job. If I was betting, I would bet on Jaden Daniels winning that job. Similar situation going on in Ole Miss with Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier. Jackson Dart, the super talented transfer from Southern Cal, joining Lane Kiffin alongside the absolute freak of a tight end, Michael Trigg, who I think is going to have a monster year no matter who plays quarterback, transferring to Ole Miss, challenging Luke Altmaier. Luke Altmaier, the returner, and Dart undoubtedly more talented. But Kiffin had made comments throughout the year about play within the offense, play within the offense, and Dart's struggling to do that. And Altmaier was not. Altmaier for sure outplayed him in the spring game. Apparently, that went a little bit differently. Now that all these teams are having scrimmages, apparently Dart is picking it up and gaining steam. And these narratives are always really interesting to me. Are people saying that he's gaining steam just because they want him to? And I don't know. But if you're betting, that one's a tough one right there. I think I might bet on Luke Altmaier to be the starter for game 1. But if you ask me who the starter is going to be for the Egg Bowl, I think it's going to be Jackson Dart. A&M, big quarterback battle. An LSU transfer, Max Johnson, who was okay, played well at times, battling Haynes King, who was the starter going into last year before he got hurt, had to miss the end of the season, and Zach Calzada took over for him. Ended up beating Alabama, having a pretty good season. I don't understand why he transferred. But it does appear that Max Johnson had all the buzz. I don't know if he was promised anything by Jimbo. I assume not. But he's clearly transferred from a school where he was going to battle for a starting job to another school where he was going to have to battle because he thought that he had a better chance to win the starting job at A&M. I would think. Unless he was just that banged up about Ed Orgeron getting fired. But it appears that Haynes King has started to edge out Max Johnson as camp has evolved. Apparently played better in the scrimmage. And the beat writers in A&M are saying that Haynes King has now taken the lead. Auburn's the other big battle in the SEC. 2 transfers there, another LSU transfer, and the A&M transfer that I just mentioned. TJ Finley battling Zach Calzada. TJ Finley played South Carolina. South Carolina beat him with Auburn. Zach Calzada, real strong arm, young guy, played really well against Alabama. Has impressive throwing the ball. I think a lot of people expect him to come in and win that job. But the people in Auburn are saying that now TJ Finley might have started to eke ahead of him there and might end up winning the starting job there. So, look, it's 2 weeks away. It's talking season. We're not sure what's going to happen. We're not sure if all of these teams are going to name starters for week 1. But I do like to monitor what's going on. And, again, right now it seems like Luke Altmaier's got the edge over Jackson Dart. Jaden Daniels has the edge over Garrett Nussmeier and LSU. Haynes King has the edge over Max Johnson at A&M and TJ Finley is got the edge over Zach Calzada in Auburn. Texas it's unknown at this point, but I think most people are expecting Quinn Ewers to be the starting quarterback there because it kind of has to be. If the fans have influence and the boosters have influence like they do at Texas, kind of has to be Quinn Ewers. But we will see. Just 2 weeks away from week 0, 3 weeks away from all of these teams that I just mentioned playing. Only 2 weekends away from them playing. And we will find out everything. 803-404-6100. Keep it right here. You're listening to The Early Game on 107.5 Game. Ed, did you see these interviews that Terry sent? How long are they? Do we know? Okay, so just a minute total. Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we can play one going into this next segment. I think we go to play some audio. I know he likes this too. Oh, great. Okay. Perfect.
Promo code $1 for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code $1. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code $1 for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code $1 for a $5 bonus.
Hey, if you've got a hole in your roof or you need a hole in your roof, you need to call Mid-State Roofing, 356-1919. For nearly a quarter of a century, Mid-State Roofing has established its reputation as the leader in the roofing industry. Whether it's above your head or at your feet, perhaps a leaky foundation, 356-1919 is the number to call for all your roofing and waterproofing needs. The quality and craftsmanship of a Mid-State roofing system are tops in the industry, especially commercial and industrial roofing systems. If you own or you're
Mark, it's Ed Bird. He usually fills in when Jenner Dave is out. And Jen and Dave are both out this week.
effects of the summertime heat, your house feels it too. Lack of rain, high humidity, and random storms wreak havoc on your home's foundation, causing wall cracks, sticking windows and doors, mold, and musty smells. Mount Valley Foundation Services knows this. It's ready to protect and repair your home with permanent foundation and crawl space solutions. With your free, no obligation appointment, fixmyfoundation.com. That's fixmyfoundation.com. Mount Valley Foundation Services, rock solid foundation. Mix a little sports analysis, pop culture, and everything. And you've got the Rich ICO podcast.
Right. Everybody's leaving me hanging. Polly, you going for a walk? You going for a walk? Have fun. Have fun. And that's Marshawn Lloyd talking about the injury. We discussed it a little bit yesterday, but a handful of Gamecocks sitting out in the scrimmage with injury. Marshawn Lloyd, one of those. Bill mentioned yesterday, at what point do you get concerned about Marshawn Lloyd's injuries? And I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I said yesterday, it's something you think about, but you also – that's where you need depth. And South Carolina has depth. If they have depth at any position, it's running back at this point. Christian Beale Smith is a known commodity. He's played really well for Wake Forest. So, as a physical runner, you can count on him to get you short yardage, touchdowns, and goal-to-go situations, and just generally early downs. Juju McDowell, we know what he's got. He's got juice. He can play on third downs. He can catch balls out of the backfield, and he's physical for his size. So as much as we really want Marshawn Lloyd to be healthy, if you watch the documentary, you saw him talking about his recovery from injury and how much of an uphill battle it was. It always is. Rehab stinks, sitting in the training room all day, every day, not being able to play, practice, just worrying about rehabbing your knee. That's tough. And this is a separate injury. I don't know if there's any relation ever. I mean, sometimes one injury will lead to problems in another part of the body because you overcompensate. I don't know if this is an example of that, but an ACL that was clearly still lingering last year, if not just the brace, was hampering his ability to be an effective runner. Then you're hoping that this was the year that there's no restrictions and he's going to be 100% good to go for week one. It appears that's not the case, but just a sprained foot. I've never had a sprained foot, so I can't speak to how that feels. But it sounds like Marshawn is expecting to play week 1. I don't know if everyone else is expecting him to be full go week 1 against Georgia State. 803-404-6100 is the number. I mentioned the NFL top 100 list, and York says, because I asked how many Gamecocks would be on it if we did a college 100 list, he says Cam Smith and Spencer Rattler. Hard to disagree with that. The other choices, I think, it would be maybe Zach Pickens could sneak in there at the back end of that list. Maybe Jaheim Bell finds himself on that list. Marshall says hypothetical time Spencer Rattler leaves after the year we all expect. Who is our starting quarterback game 1 next year? I would think it's Luke Doty. I mean, as of right now, I think it would be Luke Doty. Richard said he's waiting to hear Luke Doty transferring to Coastal Carolina. Hate to see him wasting his career on the bench because they'll never start a full season. Maybe. Yet next year could be his year. And he's still got eligibility because he redshirted and he's got that COVID year. So hopefully he will have a chance to compete next year. I mean, hopefully maybe Spencer Rattler comes back. But if not, Coastal does seem like a logical landing point for Luke Doty. Okay, Grayson McCall will be back this year. It'll be his last year in Conway. Luke Doty from Myrtle Beach. Does seem like a natural fit, but I would like for him to finish his career as a Gamecock. 803-404-6100. We will get to Gamecock Larry in the next segment, but first want to tell you about a promotion. Again, the 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament is coming up next Friday, and this Friday, we are having an auction on a pairing with Ryan Brewer at the 107.5 The Game Golf Tournament. Again, this Friday, there's going to be an auction to play with Ryan Brewer at the golf tournament next Friday. Friday, August 26th, the golf tournament's at Charwood Golf Club. And you can call in starting this Friday, between 12 and 2 to place your bids. 12 and 2, you can place a bid. The winning bidder will be paired with Ryan and placed in a foursome. They will also receive a pair of tickets to the home opener versus Georgia State. The starting bid is $150 with included entry to the tournament, and the proceeds go to charity. So again, this Friday, from 12 to 2, you can call in 803-404-6100 and place your bid. And the winning bidder is going to be placed with Ryan Brewer in a foursome. You'll get tickets to the home opener, 1 pair of tickets to the home opener, and your ticket to the golf tournament will be paid for. So keep an eye out for that. 803-404-6100. Got to hit a break, but as I said, Gamecock Larry coming up next, and more of your thoughts. Come join us on the live stream, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Type in 107.5 The Game, and you can be a part of the show. Mark, Steven, Justin, all with us this morning. Justin said he's ready for Gamecock football so he can relax aggressively while enjoying the game. Aggressive relaxation.
had from John Eckman Law Firm. So I gave him a call and met with him. He gave me the confidence to trust him after the reason behind my tax problems anyways was trusting someone I probably should have never trusted. He did everything he said he was going to do. And then some. His staff at the office were great, very knowledgeable. With John's help, I have no tax debt now, and I was able to have a family that otherwise I would have never been able to have. It's great to know we have changed people's lives for the better. Hi, this is local attorney John Eckton with the Eckton Law Firm. For over a decade, our office has been dedicated to helping hardworking individuals and businesses solve tax problems for good. So if you have years of unfiled tax returns or are facing IRS wage levies, bank levies, or tax liens, call our office today at 771-9800 or go to EcktonLawFirm.com. That's ECTON lawfirm.com. Let's get your tax problem solved for good. Call today. We'll be glad you did.
It's officially time to clean up the mess summer has left on your home, especially a home with over 1,800 Google reviews and a 4.9 star rating. Zero Rest Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning is the most highly reviewed cleaning company in the Midwest. Their patented no residue cleaning system gets your carpets, rugs, and upholstery insanely clean. Take advantage of their back to school sale going on now. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean for only $119 when you mention me. Bill Gunner at 1075.
You can have him, Eric.
Schedule your cleaning online at ZeroRestColumbia.com.
I feel like it was always going to be Ohio State or Duke. Sorry, live stream. You're not going to be able to hear Gamecock Larry. Eight 803-404-6100 is the number to the text line and the Love Chevrolet phone lines, and we are going to get right out to the Love Chevrolet phone lines where Gamecock Larry is waiting. Good morning, Gamecock Larry. How you doing this morning, sir? Yep. Thank you, Gamecock Larry. Looking forward to the top 22 players from 1940 to 1980 and the top 22 players from 1980 to 2020. Didn't get the chance to ask if that was going to be position by position. Are we doing 22 because 22 players at a time? If so, I would love to know who Gamecock Larry's top right guard is from 1940 to 1980, as well as 1980 to 2020. Players in the last couple of years they're getting left out. 803-404-6100 if you have any thoughts to add to that. We were talking quarterbacks in the last segment as well. Eric says, can't wait. Travis says, can't wait to see your top players from the 40s. Yeah. I could name very few. Steve the Cadillac Wadiak might be the only one I can name. Again, 803-404-6100. Stephen says, time to start controversy. The way Shane Beamer praises Luke Doty could start game 1 this year. I know what you're saying, but no. He's been a staunch defender of Spencer Rattler. But I do think Luke Doty's locked in number 2. And the third position, that's kind of an interesting discussion. I don't know when the last time South Carolina only played one quarterback in a whole season. I don't even think Jake Bentley ever went through a whole season where he was the only quarterback that played. And played meaningful snaps, too. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't know if there's a game where Jake Bentley took every meaningful snap, not just blowing out FCS teams. I expect there to be a couple games where South Carolina can get a couple quarterbacks on the field. Hopefully, that can happen in week 1. Georgia State is not an FCS team, though. They're not a bad group of 5 team. They're a very good group of 5 team. And South Carolina does have to take them seriously. But I do think that if all goes well, they should be able to get Luke Doty in there at the end. But who will be the third quarterback? Will it be Colton Gauthier, the returning sophomore? Will it be one of the freshmen? Will Braden Davis or Tanner Bailey? Are they outplaying each other right now? That's one thing that we really haven't heard much of. Haven't heard any news about any of these guys really outdueling each other. Certainly some high expectations going forward, and we assume that not all 3 of them will eventually graduate from the University of South Carolina. One of them is going to eventually have to beat the other ones out. But who is that going to be? We're really not sure at this point. But I am interested in it. That's one position that we haven't really talked about, but always becomes necessary. Daddy-O said, would you describe our 2021 quarterback situation more as duct tape, Bondo, or super glue? All applicable. Again, that is why the third quarterback discussion is actually relevant, and why all this talk about Timmy McClain, the Southern Florida quarterback, if you didn't hear that, transferring just hours after Jerry Bohannon, the Baylor transfer, was named the starting quarterback in Southern Florida. That's why I think coaches are really trying to announce these moves late now. Because there is a little balancing act to be played there. One, if you're sure who your starting quarterback is going to be, you want your team to rally behind them. You want them to be empowered in practice, to be a leader, to become a leader. That's why going into last year, we talked a lot in the summer about Luke Doty going in as the guaranteed starting quarterback, unanimous starting quarterback, heading into fall camp or summer camp, whatever we had that argument about with Chris Deering not liking being called fall camp. But heading in to the fall season and throughout the summer, Luke Doty was the leader of the team. He was the starting quarterback. And it was good for him to feel that, to be a leader, and to have that power and authority. You can't necessarily have that in Ole Miss with Luke Altmaier being the returner, Jackson Dart being relatively new to campus. Which one of them is leading the team? You can't have that at LSU. Miles Brennan was a fifth-year senior. Now he's gone. You would have thought that he might have been the leader, but Nick Garrett-Nussmeier was returning. Jane Daniels had just transferred in after getting his locker trashed at Arizona State after he decided to transfer. Players saying, good, I'm glad he's gone. I don't know which one of those guys was the leader throughout the summer. Haynes King and Max Johnson. Max Johnson, I think they're the same age. But Haynes King being a returner, maybe tried to take that leadership role. TJ Finley, I guess you could call him the returning starter at Auburn because he finished the season. Versus Zach Calzada, which one of them is the leader? Certainly Quinn Ewers was not the leader. He should be a true freshman at Texas right now. because he left high school early. Just interesting. And South Carolina, there's no doubt right now. Spencer Rattler has been the leader, has been a leader. But what will the situation be next year? It's interesting. 803-404-6100. We'll wrap up hour number 2 when we come back. You're listening to The Early Game, 107.5 The Game.
$400 per team. Reserve your spot for this year's tournament by calling the Charwood Golf Club at 803-755-2000 and mention 1075 The Game. Begin at 9 a.m. Shotgun start at 10 a.m. Day off for breakfast and lunch provided by Little Pigs. A portion of the proceeds will go to Camp Cole. The 1075 The Game Golf Tournament, August 26th at Charwood Golf Club. On your home of the Gamecocks, 1075 The Game.
Sponsored by South Carolina Education Lottery.
A hit and run in Gilbert at 2 Notch and Main Street, and an accident at Platte Springs Road and Lake Dogwood Drive.
The Mega Millions jackpot for Tuesday is $82 million. Be sure to stop by your local South Carolina Education Lottery retailer and get your ticket today. See SCEducationLottery.com for jackpot odds in a store near you.
Life matters. Puppies were born recently at our house, and my hound dog has become one good mama. She keeps track of her babies, feeds and cleans them. She's patient, caring, and protective. An ideal mom, if I say so myself. Our shed was home to a nest of sparrows about the same time. That mama bird impressed me too. She buzzed me several times, causing my heart to skip a few beats, but then I found out why. In the 3 weeks the baby birds are in the nest, the parent sparrows will make about 5,000 trips for food. All my attention was centered on the pups, not on those sparrows. But Jesus pointed out that not even a little sparrow falls to the ground without our Heavenly Father taking note of it. If He loves a sparrow that much, how much do you think He loves you? This is Stephen Chitty. Remember, life matters, and so do you. Go to clcolumbia.com for in-person and live streaming service times.
Uneven sidewalks, pool decks, or patios? Canty can repair them for just a fraction of the cost of replacement. Call Canty Foundation Specialists today for your free estimate.
Canty can fix it.
Uneven concrete can be a dangerous tripping hazard leading to injury. Call the experts at Canty to permanently repair your sinking or cracked concrete. Call 753-1495 or visit CantyCanFixIt.com. Canty can fix it.
Susan, I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic is terrible.
It sure is. But on top of that, gas prices have been skyrocketing. I can't believe how expensive gas has gotten recently.
Prices at the pump are up, but I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
And does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code FREE for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's promo code FREE. And cash out anytime right to your bank account to PayPal or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just
YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Come join us on the live stream. Click subscribe, 1075 The Game, and you can join Travis, Mark, Casey, Daddio, York, Steven, bunch of people with us this morning. And again, give us a call on the Love Chevrolet phone lines or on the text lines. We're going to talk quarterbacks, bunch of quarterback battles going on. We're going to talk big picture college football. Who got snubbed? Who is the biggest snub that's for sure going to end as a ranked team? Is it going to be LSU? Year one under Brian Kelly. Is it going to be Tennessee? A lot of people think they should have been ranked to begin with. Is it Penn State? Texas, Iowa? Who's it going to be? We'll talk about all that when we come back. Hour number 3 coming up. You're listening to The Early Game. 1075 The Game. Travis, I did see Miami's locker room. We'll bring that up. The thing that they were getting made fun of for, though, was it's so tight. It's like you can barely walk between the lockers. Good counsel, definitely. Definitely big time. Stefon Diggs. Almost Stefon Diggs.
In today's digitally driven world, the internet has become more than just a convenience or a luxury. Among other things, it keeps family members connected with loved ones, workers connected with their jobs, and students connected with their instructors and lessons. That's why the U.S. government created the Affordable Connectivity Program, also known as the ACP. This program provides eligible low-income families with discounts of up to $30 a month to help pay for their internet service. And here at FTC, we're proud to participate in this important program. FTC urges all eligible households to take advantage of this helpful program. To learn more about the ACP and to see if you qualify, visit acpbenefit.org. Potential applicants can also get more information by calling the ACP helpline at 877-384-2575. That's acpbenefit.org or call 877-384-2575.
What we're talking about on 107. Sponsored by Love Chevrolet. We will never charge above MSRP or take advantage of you with add-ons.
And kicking off the final hour of the early game, Patrick Perrette and Ed Bird with you. Be joined again by Bill Gunter tomorrow. Jen will be back on Monday. 803-404-6100 is a number if you would like to join in. And any details on the injuries, anonymous texter asks contusions, sprains, or something more serious. No, he's talking about Marshawn Lloyd, and we played the audio for you in the last hour. He just mentioned a foot sprain. Again, I don't know exactly what that means, but a foot sprain for him, he expects to be back for week 1. In what capacity will he be back? I'm not sure. I don't know if a foot sprain is something that, maybe can get worsened, or if it's just something you need to let rest. And if you come back too early, you can set yourself back 2 more steps. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the deal is there. But 803-404-6100 is the number if you want to come join us on the Love Charlotte phone lines or the text lines, and also come join us on the live stream, of course. Head to YouTube, type in 107.5 The Game, click and subscribe, or you can just find 107.5 The Game on Facebook or Twitter and hop in and join us live on there. Travis just sent in because we were talking in the last segment about the new Florida Heavener, I think is the name, football training center. Just opened yesterday, $85 million project. It's pretty spectacular. But Travis mentions the Miami new locker room, the Dwayne Johnson locker room. The Rock getting involved in the booster game and pumping some money into the Miami program for the locker room. And it looks spectacular. But what I've seen most people making fun of it for is the lockers feel like you could reach your feet out and be kicking the person across from you. So while everything that we're seeing is getting huge and these guys are having they could basically live in their lockers. At Florida, the seat reclines all the way back. They got a big locker, all the things you could ever want to store in there. But Miami's is just super tight. I don't know if the building was limited on space or what the deal is there. I'm not super familiar with Miami's facilities. I know that a lot of money is being pumped in right now. Certainly they're paying players directly, but that the facilities, they look beautiful, but they're a little underwhelming compared to what Florida just built. I think the Florida building looks spectacular. Maybe South Carolina fans hate to hear it, but I think their colors are cool. I think the blue and orange all over the place looks pretty cool. It's bright. It looks exciting. It's all, at this point, it's almost cookie cutter stuff, these facilities, what they've got. They've got huge weight rooms. Their training rooms are pretty much all the same. They're all just spectacular at this point. When you're spending $60+ million, they're all going to look the same. So what is the next big change? I'm not sure. When we start getting, like the Big Ten I mentioned last week, the new media deal, they're up to about $1.5 billion a year in media rights. When schools start making $80 million a year just from their media rights, we talked about how can you even spend that money? For a school like Florida, when they've already got $85 million building just built that they spent years on, and it's got all the gadgets and things that you can possibly think of, what do you even do? Where do you go from there? Do you just keep adding to the stadium? Do you just add LED lights like South Carolina did? Do you add more luxury boxes? Do you do what Mississippi State just did, where they added a section of their upper deck that fans can bring coolers so they can tailgate at the stadium? I don't know where you spend that money now. Like, at a certain point, does it matter how much better your facility gets? Can South Carolina do anything in that area to the Long Center to make it more appealing, or to do anything that might actually influence a kid to come there rather than Clemson or Florida or wherever? How much can the facility make a difference at this point? Because it does feel like once you've hit that threshold and you've reached the levels of South Carolina, Clemson, Alabama, Oregon, all these schools that have high-profile, spectacular facilities, at what point is it even making a difference? And at what point do you just worry about paying the players straight up? Because Miami, I'm not familiar with their facility. Someone said that it's a temporary locker room. I don't know why they would pump that much money and why would Dwayne Johnson have a temporary locker room named after him? Maybe it is. Maybe they're building something new. I know they were talking about it, and they were talking about wanting to build a new stadium too. But again, unsure what their facility situation really is. I'll take a virtual tour or something like that today. But what they are doing is they're paying the players directly. And does that make a bigger difference? Last week we talked about the Southern Methodist SMU collective that's going to give every football and basketball player $36,000. Guaranteed. Does that make a bigger difference? Texas Tech was going to do $25,000, and Texas Tech is also building new facilities. So they're doing it both ways. They're paying the players directly, and they're pumping tens of millions of dollars into a stadium upgrade, into a new football practice center, new ops building, all that stuff. The question I do have is who's getting that money, the guaranteed money? Is it going to walk-ons? First situation yesterday, like South Carolina had. If you haven't seen the video, go check out Gamecock social media. Probably the best thing in college football is the surprise scholarships. And yesterday we saw that from South Carolina with Peyton Mangrum, wide receiver who hasn't gotten shine, but apparently has been a big contributor on special teams, works really hard. Shane Beamer gets the team in the film room, starts showing highlights, saying, look what he does. It's the little things. Look how hard he's working here. And ends the video by saying, Peyton is going to be out there and he's going to continue to do this and that, whatever he was talking about on the board. He's going to continue to do this. But what you're not going to continue to do is pay for your education. And then everyone goes berserk. You could tell that everyone knew it was coming. The best is when they're like fully surprises. And this was probably a surprise, but you could tell it was coming because Shane Beamer says what you're not going to do. And you can kind of see in the background of the video, people starting to get up to go swarm him. And as soon as he says pay for your education, they just go nuts. He gives his family a little FaceTime call. Looks like this is a team meeting before they do breakout sessions into their own respective film rooms. And everyone kind of clears out. And you see Joyner and Josh Vann and all the guys surrounding Peyton Mangrum. And he gives his family a call and says, Coach Beamer just put me on scholarship. They are the best videos. They're what makes college football great. The guys that work really hard, the walk-ons that get playing time, that are important parts of the team. And Shane Beamer's talked about that too. There's 85 scholarships. However many the school lets him fill out the roster with, he's going to fill it out. And the best players are going to play. And a lot of times those are walk-ons. So that was just a great video. I guess this is a Miami fan. He says Miami's not paying players directly, more irresponsible journalism. Okay, jeez. Obviously, they're not paying him directly. It's the guy that invented Life Wallet. Let me look up what his name is for you. The billionaire that owns Life Wallet, the company, some sort of software company, is the one that's cutting all these checks. Obviously, it's not the university paying them. That is illegal. At this point, this far into NIL, when I say that, everyone knows what we're talking about. John Ruiz is the one paying the Miami players. Every major school has their big booster. South Carolina, a weird situation where they don't have that one. But John Ruiz is the billionaire that's funding Miami's players right now. So that, again, is sort of going the longer way than the facilities are, is ultimately my point. Florida's got spectacular facilities. They're recruiting really well. I think normally right after these buildings get built, there's a bit of a bump. There's a lot of buzz surrounding it. You might get a little bump. South Carolina's gone through those stretches. There was a June under Will Muschamp where they landed like 5 players in a day. And Florida's on a ridiculous run right now. They've completely changed the complexion of their current recruiting class. And they are on a run right now. If they land Cormani McClain, they'll be a fringe top 10 class. Cormani McClain could end up being the number 1 player in the class. Arch Manning is number 1 right now, has been this entire cycle. But Cormani McClain, the defensive back, there is discussion that he might be the best overall player in the class and could find himself at number 1 before long. Obviously, the Arch Manning thing, very controversial. Some people saying that if his name wasn't Manning, he'd be a 3-star. I think that's a massive stretch. I think a lot of people think it's a massive stretch. But is he the greatest quarterback prospect of all time, or is his name Manning? I'm sure there's a level to which each is somewhat accurate. While we're on the recruiting topic, I did mention Desmond Emeazulu, the defensive end prospect from the DMV, announced his commitment date as well as Xavier McLeod, is going to commit on Thursday. So 2 pass rushing prospects in the next 2 weeks or so are going to make their commitments, and South Carolina finalists for each of them. Xavier McLeod, the Camden prospect, huge recruit for South Carolina, huge prospect. Number 3 player in the state, and we've talked about that's what South Carolina needs to do first and foremost. Lock down the state. You got to win those battles, especially a kid from Camden. You got to win that battle, and then the DMV. Those 2 guys, those pass rushers, you got to win those battles. You got to win at least one of them. Obey Zulu's Final 4 is North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio State, and Pittsburgh. So Ohio State's tough to beat out. If he goes there, you can't blame him. But you got to beat out the other 2. You can't lose players to Pittsburgh. 803-404-6100. We'll get back into more college football talk. We'll talk about these quarterback battles when we come back. You're listening to The Early Game, 107.5 A Game.
Want to play golf with Ryan? By the Game Golf Tournament at Charwood, August 26th. We'll be auctioning up golf on the halftime show this Friday between noon and 2. Listeners must call into the studio between noon and 2 Friday to place their bid. Payment information will be taken at that time, and the winner will be charged at 2 p.m. The winning bidder will be paired with Ryan and placed in a foursome. Plus, will receive a pair of tickets to the USC home opener versus Georgia State. Starting bid $150 and includes entry to the tournament. Proceeds go to charity. Good luck. This is JR from the JR Sport Brief with the CBS Sports Minute, sponsored by Wrangler Jeans. Visit Wrangler.com for the best in denim. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Brett Favre says that he's had more than 1,000 concussions in his career. He's now an advocate that children under 14 play flag football and don't start to tackle until then. I wouldn't be mad if 14 became the cutoff point.
More places need slides like Clemson, yeah.
Wrangler is made for those moments when your heart says go.
Travis, you have a good day. You can always rewatch.
Calls, you gotta be ready.
And come back.
Shoes that are made to move and built to last. Wrangler.
I'm running out of things to say. It's the slow time of the year. I've done 6 of the last 7 shows by myself. Losing my voice.
Sponsored by AAA Heating and Air, home of the $1,500 buyback.
And disabled vehicles slowing things down at Clemson Road and Suffolk Parkway, and an accident at Harmon's Ferry Road and Timberlake Drive near Haven, and also another accident at Freegoff Road and the Fork Road.
AAA Heating and Air must clear out warehouse before you chemical efficiency regulations go into effect in 2023. No deals will be turned down. Call today to get a new unit tomorrow. 803-677-1500.
Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech. Charging a cell phone can be like getting a booster shot. A booster is given to enhance or restore protection after a primary series vaccination, which wanes over time. Schedule an appointment when you are eligible. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Hey, if you've got a hole in your roof or you need a hole in your roof, you need to call Finley Roofing, 356-1919. For nearly a quarter of a century, Finley Roofing has established its reputation as the leader in the roofing industry. Whether it's above your head or at your feet, perhaps a leaky foundation, 356-1919.
It is convenient, but I get to go to my full-time job after this. That is not from home. Fantasy football, you can kind of get into fantasy football a little bit, maybe. I can hear you. Sure, I can do that. Do we have a caller on the line? Scott. Okay. Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll get Scott here. $8:17 on a Tuesday morning. Patrick Perrette and Ed Bird with you. And Bill will be back tomorrow. Jen will be back on Monday. And we want to get out to the Love Chevrolet phone lines, 803-404-6100 if you would like to weigh in. But Scott is on the line. Scott, how you doing this morning? Yep. Appreciate the call, Scott. And yeah, I mean, I can get on board with a lot of those takes. You mentioned Michigan. I think that Michigan is going to take a massive step back. It's going to be one of those situations where they completely got everything they could have out of last season. They reached their peak. They lost the heartbeat of their team in Aiden Hutchinson, best player in the Big Ten last year, probably. They lose David Ajabo, could have been a first round pick, but he tore his Achilles training for the draft. And now, what are you going to do? Where do you go from here? Jim Harbaugh almost left to the NFL, looked into it, didn't get offered a job, and then came back and said, no, I'm never going to look at the NFL again. I'm good. I love it here. And it hurt them. It hurt them a lot. They're still going to be strong on the lines of scrimmage. They always are. Blake Corum's a really good running back. I don't know who their starting quarterback's going to be. You got Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy battling it out. But I could totally see things not going well for them. All it's going to take for them to get out of the top 25 is get blown out by Ohio State, lose to Michigan State, lose to Penn State, maybe drop one more game to a Maryland or somebody like that if they have a really good game. Brad said, who's next to Michigan head coach-wise? I have no idea. I have no idea how long Jim Harbaugh is going to last there. But I think his shot at the NFL is over. I don't think he's ever going to get fired. It's just going to be a matter of, does he want to stop coaching? Because it feels like he's reached his peak there. Maybe there's another level they can get to, but it just hasn't seemed that way. It doesn't seem like it's trending that way. The other two teams Scott mentioned are maybe the two most fascinating teams to follow this year in tandem with each other, Clemson and Oklahoma. He said Clemson loses the best defensive coordinator in the country, in his opinion. I don't know that there's too many people that would agree with that or disagree with that, sorry. Almost unanimously, Brad Venables was the best defensive coordinator, and he was always a hot head coaching candidate for any job that he might have wanted. I know Kansas State wanted him bad, and maybe he thought about it, but things were going so well at Clemson, there was no reason for him to leave. But that defense is absolutely loaded. That defensive line is fantastic. Trenton Simpson might be the best linebacker in the country. That defense is going to be great. that defense might be good enough to carry them through the top 10 no matter what they get at quarterback. But that's one of the more interesting questions going into college football this season is the Clemson quarterback situation. Dabo's had a couple controversies before at the quarterback position. He took a while to get Deshaun Watson in there. He made the right decision, clearly, deciding to go with Trevor Lawrence as a freshman. But that was a tough decision, and it took him 4 weeks to decide. How long is the leash going to be for DJ before they pull the trigger and get Cade Klubnik in there? Oklahoma's an interesting team, too. They lost a lot of transfers. They lost Caleb Williams after it looked like he was going to stay early in the offseason, and it looked like they were going to be screwed. Then out of nowhere, Dylan Gabriel transfers. So they will have a high level of quarterback play. I think if Dylan Gabriel was at Texas A&M, I would be picking Texas A&M to easily finish in the top 5. If Dylan Gabriel was at Texas A&M, I would say it would be Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, and Texas A&M, then a gap between everybody else. But as it sits right here, I think it's the top 3. Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, huge gap. Clemson, another gap. Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Utah. 803-404-6100. John is on the line. Good morning, John. How you doing this morning? Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. Interesting. The South Carolina one, a lot of people listening are going to agree. South Carolina got 2 votes. Looking like they're around 43 of the teams that did receive votes. The last team to receive a single vote, the only team to receive just 1 vote, right down there below, UCLA with 2 votes, San Diego State with 2 votes, South Carolina with 2 votes, and Utah State with 2 votes, was the Cornhuskers, like you just mentioned. 1 singular vote, they'll finish at 45. He said they are the greatest 3-9 team of all time. They lost every game essentially by 1 possession. And their win total kind of shows that a lot of people agree that they're taking that big jump this year. For a 3-win team to have a win total of 7.5, while a team like South Carolina, who won 7 games last year, has a win total of 5.5, is kind of crazy. But people are in on Nebraska. And Scott Frost is on the hot seat. I don't know what it would take for him to get fired this year. But if they go to a bowl game, I would think he's safe. If they go to a bowl game, that means they doubled their win total. I don't know what's changed there to make us believe that that's going to flip. I think most people are just banking on they were better than their record showed last year. And the bounces that didn't go their way last year are going to go their way this year. And you just flip 1 missed field goal throughout the season, and maybe they're a bowl team last year. Couple dropped passes, dropped interceptions, couple fumbles, goal line possessions that didn't go their way. Those little plays, the high leverage plays throughout the course of a game, didn't go Nebraska's way last year. Maybe they do this year. And Nebraska finds themselves going bowling after being a 3-win team last year. Interesting. That's exactly what I want to hear from you guys. 803-404-6100. Those teams that are going to come out of nowhere and end up being top 25 teams. And conversely, the teams that are getting a lot of buzz that you're just not buying it this year. You're not in. Are you not in on Baylor because you don't like Blake Sharpen? Are you high on Penn State this year even though they're not ranked? Maybe you're a Sean Clifford guy. Where are you at with Tennessee? Certainly that offense can be high powered. That defense has improved. The offensive line, if they stay healthy, will be a much better unit. There's a lot of reasons to believe that Tennessee got better. I know some people were upset that Tennessee was unranked and Kentucky's ranked. I don't disagree because I think Kentucky's a better team. I don't agree because I think Kentucky's a better team. But Tennessee did beat them last year, and you could say that Tennessee lost less, gained more, whereas Kentucky is just kind of treading water at best, losing their best pass rusher, Josh Pascal, losing their best playmaker in Wan'Dale Robinson. But I like what Kentucky brings back, and I like the additions that they've made to their program as well. So who's overhyped and who's not getting enough besides South Carolina? 803-404-6100. Final half hour or so of the show. When we come back, it's Patrick Brett and Ed Bird with you. You're listening to the early game, 107.5 The Game. All right, I'd hop off mic for a second. We ready for this promo? Cool. All right, in 3, 2, 1. And coming up on the Wednesday edition of the early game, Bill Gunter returns. We will break down the AP Top 25, who got snubbed, who was overranked. We're also getting ready for another week of NFL preseason, and we're 1 week closer to college football. We'll break down all the storylines for you, and Bill Gunter again returns on Wednesday edition of the early game on 107.5 The Game. Yeah, Mark, used to be overnight. Now I got a normal 8:30 to 5:30 since I'm on Central Time. So it's 9:30 to 6:30. And what we're talking about is a lot of college football this morning, as we are just 2 weekends away. This weekend is the last weekend without college football. Next weekend is the last weekend without South Carolina football. And that will carry us through the fall. Next Friday, you will have an opportunity to talk a lot of football, as the 107.5 The Game golf tournament will be taking place at Charwood right before week 0 gets underway. And we have a great opportunity for you this Friday. Next Friday is the golf tournament. This Friday is the auction. And you're going to have an opportunity to win a pairing with Ryan Brewer at the 107.5 The Game golf tournament. Ryan Brewer, one of the 30 greatest Gamecocks of the SEC era. Okay, August 26th is the golf tournament. This Friday, between 12 and 2, during the halftime show this week, between 12 and 2, you can call in to place your bid to be in a pairing with Ryan Brewer in a foursome. And you will also receive a pair of tickets to the USC home opener versus Georgia State. The starting bid is $150. And again, that includes entry to the tournament, the proceeds going to charity, as well as the tickets to the USC home opener. So call in between 12 and 2, 803-404-6100 this Friday, and you can win that opportunity. Again, 803-404-6100. We're talking about win totals and expectations. And Brad says, I suppose Vegas remembers the 1 to 2 years under Muschamp where SC was supposed to challenge for second in the East. It is possible. I do wonder how that sort of stuff influences Vegas. But as South Carolina fans, every single offseason we think the win total is wildly low and disrespectful, and we've been burned multiple times by going under. Last year, they obliterated it. The win total was, depending on where you looked, it was in the 3 range, 3.5-ish. They were expected to be very bad. And all they did was go to a bowl game and win one. This year, the win total is about 5.5. So, again, expected regression from a win total standpoint, but potentially still a better team. And that's what most of the national pundits are saying, too. We had Phil Steele on last week, and he said the same thing. I really like the direction South Carolina is going, but look at that schedule. And just looking through the schedule, looking through the AP Top 25, a lot of South Carolina opponents on it. Number 3 and 4, both on the schedule. Georgia's at number 3, with also 3 first-place votes. Clemson's at number 4. Texas A&M's at number 6. So 3 of the top 6 teams are on South Carolina's schedule this year, as well as numbers 19 and 20. 5 top 20 opponents. Tennessee just missed the cut there at 26. Essentially half of South Carolina's schedule is on the verge of top 25. So not surprising. And I asked who are the teams that are going to be outside of the top 25 that are in the top 10 right now. Is Texas A&M going to be one of those? South Carolina gets A&M off of the Bama game, right after the Bama game. Could that be one of those games that South Carolina steals? Is it a trap spot for Texas A&M? Texas A&M is definitely one of those teams that has some of the highest variance. There's so many teams in the SEC West that have just incredible amounts of variance. And that makes the quarterback battles interesting too. Because you look at some of these battles, and I said earlier, we're starting to get some clarity. There's a bunch of battles over there in the West. In Ole Miss, Luke Altmaier seems to have the edge over Southern Cal transfer Jackson Dart. But Ole Miss definitely has more upside with Jackson Dart. There's a chance that Jackson Dart could throw away games that they should win because he's too aggressive. But there's also a chance that Jackson Dart can make the spectacular types of throws that you need to beat a team like Alabama. So where does Lane Kiffin go? He's a gambling man. He likes to go for on fourth down. He's lost games because of his aggressiveness. But he also needs a quarterback that's going to do what he says. And it does appear that because of that, Luke Altmaier sort of has the edge right now. That's what we're hearing at Oxford. Do I think that's going to last the whole season? No, I don't. I think Jackson Dart's eventually going to get in there. But right now, the mainstay of the program seems to have the edge. At LSU, it's hard to say which one has higher upside. Probably Jaden Daniels because he can run as well. He's a better athlete than Garrett Nussmeier. But Garrett Nussmeier has a lot of talent. He's the returner. Jane Daniels seems to have the edge right now because Nussmeier's hurt. And certainly Daniels is started right now. And as we mentioned, if you did not hear, Miles Brennan, the fifth-year senior, several times was supposed to be the starter at LSU, but injuries just kept hurting him. Joe Burrow transferring, dropped him back on the depth chart as well. Miles Brennan is retiring from football. Put out a nice message to the LSU community, thanking them, saying that he'll always be a Tiger, he'll always remember his time in Baton Rouge, but he's stepping away from the game now. Brian Kelly told him he wasn't starting, and I think ultimately the injuries and all that stuff got to him, and he wanted to give it one more go, but he's ready. He's at a place where he's comfortable hanging him up. So Jaden Daniels versus Garrett Nussmeier is now the story of camp for LSU. Haynes King, Max Johnson. I couldn't even begin to tell you which one has more upside. Same with TJ Finley and Zach Calzada. I think Zach Calzada has more upside. He was a higher-rated recruit. He's got a pretty spectacular arm, but neither of them scare me very much. Haynes King and Max Johnson. I mean, Max Johnson's a pretty good athlete. Haynes King's a pretty good athlete. I don't think either one of them are special. And for sure, that is the position that's hurting. That's the position that's hurting Texas A&M. I don't see Connor Weigman coming out of nowhere to win that job. At LSU, I can't see Walker Howard coming in and winning that job over veterans Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. But it is worth mentioning that there are some special freshman quarterback prospects there. Do you have any thoughts on the quarterback battles? Does it matter? Are any of these battles gonna change the way you think about a team? And only two of those teams that I mentioned are top 25 teams right now. LSU is one of the big snubs from the top 25 on both polls. I think they'll find themselves in there at the end of the year. But Luke Altmaier for Jackson Dart, that's going to be a fairly high-profile battle throughout the first half of the season. And Ole Miss has an interesting schedule. It's very backloaded. They have a couple weeks to figure this thing out where it's not really going to matter. They start their season against Troy, Central Arkansas, at Georgia Tech, and Tulsa. That's their first 4 games. Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, and Tulsa. But after that, Kentucky. Then they got Vandy. Auburn, LSU, A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi State. That last 5 to 6 weeks, depending on what you think of these teams, is brutal, especially the last 4. At A&M, versus Alabama, after a bye, at Arkansas, Mississippi State. They've got to have their quarterback situation figured out by then, and I'm predicting that by the time we hit October, Jackson Dart will have won the starting job. 803-404-6100. We will wrap up the program when we return. It's Patrick Brent and Ed Bird, and you are listening to The Early Game, 107.5 The Game.
But with eBay Motors, there's 122 million parts right at your fingertips. Whatever you need, there's something that fits your vehicle. Air filters, tires, seat covers, and more. Get the right parts at the right price. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. requirements. Broadcasting live from the Heritage Chevrolet Studio. This is 107.
And we're wrapping up the Tuesday edition of the Early Game. Patrick Brett and Ed Bird with you. Bill Gunter will be back tomorrow. I'm ready for his return. 18 of the last 21 hours talking to myself on this show. I don't know how he does it every day. Going crazy. Losing my voice. We need Bill back. Jen will be back on Monday as well. Ed's going to carry us through this week. And we're just a week away. Just about. This time next week, we'll be getting ready for week 0. This time 2 weeks from now, we'll be getting ready for week 1 and South Carolina versus Georgia State, as well as a full slate of SEC games. We've talked a lot about the new AP Top 25 poll coming out today, getting your thoughts on which of the top 10 teams are going to find themselves unranked, who's the most overranked teams, who are the teams that got snubbed. Notably, Tennessee, LSU, Penn State, Iowa, Texas, teams that are usually used to seeing in the top 25 not finding themselves ranked this year. But clearly there's going to be a lot of shakeups. But it's a lot of groupthink right now between the coaches, the writers that do these polls. The coaches poll and the AP poll have 24 of the same 25 teams. The only difference is that the AP poll does not have Texas. It has BYU. The coaches poll has Texas. So what's going to be the biggest change from the sort of the way the group is thinking about things? That's kind of the question of the day. 803-404-6100. Little under 10 minutes for you to get your final thoughts in on that. I'm going to do some sort of quick hitter stories. Cut down day. The first cut down day in the NFL is today. Not very significant. You're not going to see many names that you know. The rosters need to go from 90 to 85 today. So just brief NFL news. One cool NFL story I saw yesterday was this thing that was debuted at the Packers facility. You can find it at _Patrick Pratt. I retweeted it. But this thing called the Seeker from Monarch Sport. It's sort of like a jugs machine, but it's programmed with, I guess, some sort of AI that's able to figure out kind of exactly how every quarterback throws the ball. It's mostly designed for defensive backs. Apparently, Adrian Amos for the Packers is the first person to have one of these, and the Packers are the first NFL team to debut it. But you got to look at the thing. It's crazy. And you can plug in a quarterback, and you can plug in the type of route that he's throwing. So in the video, you see someone, presumably from Monarch Sport, walking the reporters through what it is. And he says, if Kirk Cousins wants to throw this route, he throws it at this trajectory, at this mile an hour, and the jugs machine, whatever you want to call it, the Seeker, will adjust accordingly. It is crazy the levels that we're at, but it's designed for helping defensive backs be able to adjust to the football, feel how each quarterback is going to throw it. If Josh Allen rips the football, you need to be prepared to catch a fast-moving football. If Kirk Cousins sort of drops it in softly, you got to be able to be prepared to catch a football thrown gently. And then he also mentioned that this can take thousands of throws off of Aaron's arm. So it can be used for wide receivers, potentially running routes, and quarterbacks not having to rely on the quarterbacks to throw the ball every time, but still getting that same feel. Because you can have a coach throw a ball to a receiver, running out routes, and they can get catches and they can hit the jugs machine, but it's not gonna be exactly how Aaron Rodgers throws the ball. And we know every quarterback throws the ball differently. Yesterday, Garrett Wilson from the Jets kind of got into some trouble. Not trouble, but it's going to get people talking, especially in a market like New York, because as we mentioned yesterday, Zach Wilson is down for a couple weeks. There's a chance Joe Flacco is going to end up having to start the first game against the Baltimore Ravens. And reporters asked Garrett Wilson, what's the difference between Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco? And he started talking about just how every quarterback, it feels a little bit different the way they throw the football. But the phrase that he used for Joe Flacco was he throws a receiver-friendly ball. because he knows how to take some off of it on certain routes. He knows how to take a little off of it for a crossing route where you need to throw it softer, and he knows how to put more on it for an out route where you need to push it to the sideline, and it's got to have some juice on it. I don't think he meant anything by it. I don't think that he meant to insult Zach Wilson. I don't know that Zach Wilson will take offense to it, but especially in a market like New York, you know they're going to run with that and say the receivers don't like Zach Wilson. They'd rather catch the ball from Joe Flacco, and it's going to become a problem. It's just going to be another annoying thing that they've got to deal with, and going to be interesting, especially if Joe Flacco starts against the Ravens. So that's some NFL news. J.D. Arcega-Whiteside, I should say, the Spartanburg kid from went to Stanford, has just been traded from the Eagles to the Seahawks. He struggled to catch on in Philadelphia. They've added Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown the last 2 years, so those will be their 1-2. Jalen Reagor's already fighting to make the team, their first-round pick from a couple years ago. Receiving room's just getting a little crowded there. Arcega-Whiteside struggled. Maybe Seattle finding a new home. Learning from Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf will be good for him. Just a little brief NFL news there. We mentioned at the very top of the show, but could be fascinating. I don't know that we'll hear anything about it tomorrow, but I hope that we do. The PGA having a big meeting today. After the Cam Smith news, they're sort of freaking out. And what the tweet that I read from Alan Shipnuck is that everything is on the table. The exact tweet was, I'm hearing tomorrow's PGA Tour player meeting regarding LIV is going to be a banger. Supposedly everything's on the table, from major championship boycotts to Monahan's future to a larger compromise. And Tiger Woods is expected to fly in to provide counsel/bully. Interesting. It would be fascinating. We found out tomorrow that the players have decided to vote Jay Monahan out. We'll see. I can't imagine that much is going to leak from this meeting, but they're clearly freaking out. And I hope that the compromise is just, let's talk to LIV and let's make a deal. Let's let these guys do both. Let's make them make as much money as they want to and let them play in the tournaments that they want to on the PGA Tour, because it'll just be better for golf overall. There's no need to wage war. There's no need to carry on without some of your most marketable players. The defending British Open champion potentially not being able to play the British Open next year because the LIV Tour players aren't allowed to play. That's not good for golf. Maybe it gets people talking about golf more, but it's not good for golf. So that will be interesting to follow. One thing that's been a random topic of discussion at times is the college football video game. News yesterday that apparently the football game is going to come out, but it's only going to come out on what's called the next-gen systems. So if you've got an Xbox One like I do or a PS4, you're not going to be able to play the college football game. You're going to have to get the PS5 or whatever, the Xbox One X, I think it's called. You're going to have to get out there and spend $300 to $400, maybe more. I'm not 100% sure what the price is. They might be $500 at this point on the new system if you want to play the college football game. Is anyone going to do that? I know people are excited, the nostalgia of the new game, of playing in college like Bill used to. You would probably go out there and buy a video game. I haven't bought a video game since, I think, 2016. I think NHL 2016 is my most recent video game, or FIFA 16, one of the two. I would be intrigued by buying this, but I'm not buying a new Xbox for the sake of doing it. It's also expected to be the same engineer or whatever as Madden. So apparently the new game is going to play a lot like Madden, which, from what I can tell, most college football video game fans do not like. If they wanted Madden, they would play Madden. So tough news for college football fans there. South Carolina news, Peyton Mangrum now on scholarship. I mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't seen, check out the Gamecock football Twitter page. Shane Beamer doing a little film room deal, showing the players an example of a guy working hard, doing the little things, contributing on special teams, and ends his film session by saying Peyton's going to continue doing those little things, working hard. What he's not going to continue to do is pay for his college education. And then you can see Dick Caron Joyner is one of the first people that jumps up and goes and swarms him. Really cool moment. After the meeting breaks up and they go to their individual sessions, he FaceTimes his parents and his family and gets to tell them that he's on full scholarship. with the team all around him. Just a really cool moment. Happy for him. And that's just one of the things that makes college football great. Another quick story that we talked about a couple weeks ago when the announcement was made of the NIL deal. But my favorite NIL deal is Dakotas Crawford. If you remember him, he's from Louisiana, was initially committed to LSU. And just people started talking about him because his name was awesome. But Dakotas Crawford ended up flipping to Nebraska. And he's now a Cornhusker and got a deal with SOS Heating and Heating and Cooling. Saying that if anyone knows who has the coldest air, it's me, Dakotas Crawford. So go check out that commercial if you haven't. So far, that is my number one favorite NIL deal. Wrapping up the Tuesday edition of the early game here. And again, want to remind you guys that 107.5 The Game golf tournament is next Friday. You can tee it off with 107.5 The Game as we get ready for Gamecock football. We got Friday, August 26th at Charwood, $100 a player, $400 a team with breakfast provided plus lunch from Little Pigs. There's going to be a closest to the pin challenge and a long drive, prizes, plus a hole-in-one cash prize. Football tickets plus station prizes to give away. A portion of the proceeds will go to charity. And if you want to join, you can call Charwood at 803-755-2000. Again, 803-755-2000 to register. But register early because the tournament did sell out last year. Bill will be back tomorrow. We'll keep the college football talk rolling. You've been listening to the early game. 107.5 The Game. Oh. All right. All right. Thank you, Ed. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Yeah, you guys have a good too much talking. I need Bill back tomorrow. Have a good one. Thanks for hanging. We'll see you.